Harley was at the hospital when my son was born. I got to hold my son before my dad did.
Wow.
Harley was at my wedding. Harley was there for virtually everything, including my son. So my son knew how important the world title was to me, and knew the history and the moment how important that moment was. And it was important for him to not only see somebody he looked up to and cared about, Harley, but now seeing his dad holding that same world title um, was just a moment that most men don't get with their children anywhere. And it's a memory that my son and I will always have together for the rest of my life.
Very, very cool. I mean, that's awesome. And the Harley race connection is great. A few years ago, really was his last ever convention. We were in Philly, and he was set up next to. I brought in Ronnie Garvin, obviously former NWA world champion in his own right, and Harley's there. He's in the wheelchair, but Leland had asked if help because we were set up next to him, if we could help get him in and get everybody situated and everything else. So Harley turns to me, he goes, "Where are we?" And I was like, "Oh, this is Philly." And he's like, looking around. He's like, "Still a shithole." I was like, "Oh my god, Harley is awesome!" Like he's cutting a heel promo on Philly, still, and he's supposed to be the babyface. But it's funny. I was talking to somebody recently, like, "No, that's Harley. He'll always kind of be like that like stiff kind of heel guy." But I thought that was great. Like, wow, he's even heel in Philly now, and he's what
That's
2018,
awesome.
whatever it was. Yeah, it was really funny. And then Ronnie Garvin, I said to him, I said, "Hey, do you think that you could beat up Harley? You guys are known as like two of the tough guys." I meant really in their prime, but he's looking at him.
Right, of course.
Harley's in his wheelchair, and he goes, "Nah." He goes, "I still don't think I could take him." So I was like, "Oh, that's hilarious." He's taking me as if it's now. I meant like in his
Right.
prime, but he was saying Harley probably would have took him, even though Garvin's got those bear claws for hands. But he said that Harley probably could have taken him.
I've never met a wrestler that wrestled Harley that has said, "Yeah, I could take him." You know
Even
what I mean?
Haku, I asked Haku. Haku said no.
No, and Haku is the only other one that Harley would say, like, he wouldn't take him, but Harley would tell you, Haku would give me a run for my money. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That was the mutual respect both of those men had for each other.
I love that though. Like the two tough guys, they know they're tough, but they don't like flaunt it or like say like, "Oh, I'm kicking everybody's ass" or whatever. They just know like, "Hey, you're going to be in for a fight."
I've never met a badass who told me he was a badass before he kicked my ass. You know what I mean? Like I thoroughly enjoy when a guy comes up and decides to give me his run sheet of what he has done or hasn't done or is going to do to me. Because usually it's those guys that are probably not the toughest man in the room. Harley was one of those men that could just give you a look and you would know that you probably fucked up. That's there's not too many men in this world that have that power, but also have that power and is able to back it up as well.
Really, Harley is a legit tough guy, but also he put everything together to make himself a great NWA champion. When he's training you and you're like going through with him, what's like the best piece of advice like he's given you?
His Harley's biggest thing was, and he told me 100 times, is to make them believe, kid. You know what I mean? And that came down from when, as soon as you walk through that door, that curtain, you're on. You know what I mean? Everybody in the room is looking at you, and you have to remember that, and you have to go out there and give the fans 110%. Because if you don't, like, eventually, like, those fans won't be there. Like, that's his whole thing was, it didn't matter if there was 50 fans or 100 fans or there was 500 fans. Give them something to talk about and make them believe in what you're doing. Um, so to do that, to get to that point, we would have to spend 5 to 6 days a week in his training center after we'd all had to work all day. Everybody had a shoot job, so you would go into training about 5:30 and start at 6, and training would end technically at 9, but we wouldn't get out of there till 10 and 10:30 most nights because we just kept pushing each other and pushing ourselves and always If Harley was there, we'd want to have a match and show him what we were doing, and for him to critique it or to have an idea to make it better. The great thing about when we were wrestling for Harley and training with Harley, he was running his own shows, his own promotion. So the first 5 years of WLW, we averaged between 78 and 80 shows a year. And for an independent, that is this is 2 years before ROH has even had their first show. You know what I mean? So to run 78 and 80 shows a year for the first 5 years is huge. So we would get to go to the school and work on that stuff and run 20, 30-minute singles matches, and then be able to incorporate that into the shows for that weekend, and really kind of use it as on-the-job training. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of guys didn't have that. And not only were we wrestling those 78 to 80 shows a year for Harley, whatever dates we had open, because we were Harley guys, we were able to fill the other dates that were open. So, you know, on an independent level, it wasn't nothing for us for the first 5 years to average about 130 shows, 140 shows a year, because we were getting other bookings from other independents, because the other companies knew us as Harley guys, so they knew they were getting good workers. You know what I mean? We had Harley's stamp on our back, and so that automatically would get us into a lot of these companies, where other guys had to, either, figure out other avenues to get in and may not get looked at the first time. All they knew is, oh, that's a Harley guy. Okay. And we had a lot of pride in that. You know what I mean? Guys like me, Matt Murphy, Superstar Steve, Wade Chisholm, Dennis McCaws, Johnny Jett. There was a group of guys out of Harley's camp that we knew, like, we were the Harley guys. And so we had a lot of pride in when we go to the promotions and everybody's, those are Harley guys, and they'd ask us a lot of questions and get, just try to learn from us as well too. We liked that. You know what I mean? Like, we like to have that image, and we like those guys calling Harley and going, man, you guys killed it this weekend for me. Thank you. You know what I mean? Harley was, I wouldn't say pimping us out, but he would, other promotions would call him and go, I'd like to have this guy, and this guy. Okay, that's great. You know what I mean? I'll call them, and Harley would negotiate our fee for us to get us more money, because who's going to argue with Harley Race when he tells them, my guys are worth this, and this is what they'll get paid. And 99% of the time, the promoter's like, okay. That was a big deal for us.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.